Chapter 18, Nolan, the Unarmored Hero. Nolan, riding on Tor, saw all of this. As Tor flew over the castle once more, they looked down at the settling ruins and tried to find any sign of life. "Casper!" Nolan shouted over the side of the dragon. He never felt this level of despair, but he tried to be brave and focus on hope.
"There!"
yelled Tor. Without warning, the dragon tilted and flew with incredible speed toward the ground. They landed with a lurch, and Nolan half fell, half dismounted, off the dragon's back. The next second, Tor rose into the air again.
"I'll search for Littagale,"
he called before flapping his wings and flying back over the castle. Nolan threw his helmet on the ground to see better, but it was hard to orient in all the debris. Huge clumps of castle lay scattered over the field, and the charred remains of Tor's earlier work left a thick layer of black dirt everywhere. Nolan saw a ring of water where the moat used to surround the castle wall, and that's when he saw his friend lying where he'd fallen. "Casper!" Nolan ran through the debris and landed on his knees beside his friend. Casper's eyes fluttered open, and he reached to hold the back of his head. "Oh, ouch!" Nolan sat back in relief. "You had me worried with that fall, and then all those falling rocks. You're lucky. I am not your pet rabbit." Casper, with Nolan's help, rose to his feet to survey the scene. His eyes widened. Nolan also looked at the fallen castle. He turned with worry to his friend. "Littagale?" "She was trapped in the dungeon. That witch put a spell on the lock, so I couldn't get Littagale out. That's why I was trying to get to Ingeborg when—" Casper motioned to the fallen castle wall. Nolan retrieved his helmet and looked up in the sky, searching for the dragon. "Did you see which way Tor went?" He was going to do another flyover in hopes of spotting Littagale. Casper now looked in the sky too, and they turned around and around, peering up at the sky. Suddenly, Tor appeared from the fields on the far side of Archwild Castle. He descended toward them quickly, and Nolan saw Littagale's limp body in his clutches. Casper gasped. Tor landed on his hind legs, still holding Littagale.
"Climb on,"
he ordered the princess.
"Hurry, we have to get her home."
"Is she hurt?" asked Nolan as he ran forward. Tor lay his ears flat back on his head.
"How should I know? I'm a dragon, not a doctor. Let's go!"
Nolan and Casper obeyed without further questions. Together they climbed onto Tor's back, held on, and nervously waited as the dragon flapped his wings and rose into the air again. "Please be okay, Littagale," thought Nolan. "Please be okay." It seemed to take forever to get back to Marshwood. Tor insisted that they keep up the charade for all their sakes, so he stealthily dumped Nolan and Casper in the meadow on the edge of the forest. Nolan and Casper barely managed to lie flat in the grass to hide before all the princes from the tournament camp came riding out to charge the dragon. "Foul beast! Release the princess!" one shouted. Tor roared at them with a spray of fire, but he didn't waste time fighting. He tucked Littagale safely in his paw and rose into the air. Flapping over the forest, he flew up Mount Shadow back to his lair. "That's where Mama Sophia will be waiting," thought Nolan. "They'll be able to take care of Littagale, if anyone can." The tournament princes all turned to ride across the field after the dragon. When the coast was clear, Nolan and Casper popped up and ran across the meadow in the same direction as everyone else. They were only halfway across the field when the armored princes reached the forest trail, dismounted, and began running up the mountainside. By the time Nolan and Casper reached the forest, they were sweaty and exhausted, but they hurried on and climbed the mountain trail to the lair. Finally, they reached the crevice entrance. "Unhand her, or I will cut you down, fiend!" one prince was shouting in the lair. "No, I will cut you down!" shouted another. "You had your turn, Riddick. It's my right to—" The princes started arguing amongst themselves. Casper scowled and led the way inside. Running into the lair's main cavern, Nolan found a half-dozen princes in brightly polished armor. All were arguing amongst themselves, somehow forgetting the dragon. Tor had an elbow bent and was resting his head on his paw, watching the princes with an annoyed expression. Then Nolan saw Littagale, who lay unconscious on the cavern floor right beside the dragon. Beyond the dragon, on the far side of the cavern, Nolan saw his mother and Sophia peeking out of the princess cave. Mattea put a finger to her lips to signal Nolan to be quiet. Nolan looked at Casper, who had evidently noticed all this too. Casper looked equally confused, and equally frustrated. "I'm the bravest one here," Prince Como was arguing. His cherry-red armor didn't have a scratch on it. "Let me fight him." "No, I'm the bravest," shouted another. Nolan rolled his eyes, then examined the old mural of charred princes on the wall. He raised an eyebrow at Tor. "Anything left in the tanks, buddy?" Tor let out a huff.
Unfortunately, no.
Prince Como turned to Nolan. What are you talking about? Get out of here, Nolan. One of us deserves to save your sister. That's it! Suddenly Casper, his jerkin covered in dirt and tomato soup splashes, pushed his way through the princes and faced Tor. He cleared his throat. I'm Casper Defendall, and I'm here to rescue the princess. Riddick waved for him to get back. Don't be crazy, Casper. He'll melt you where you stand. At least get a weapon. Casper faced Tor and stood his ground. Tor's face twitched as he tried not to smile. He tilted his head ever so slightly and looked down at Littagale. Nolan watched with surprise as his sister secretively opened one eye and winked up at the dragon. Huh, thought Nolan. How about that? Tor spun back around and rose on his hind legs, spreading his wings in one magnificent fluid motion.
You'll have to fight me for her, Prince.
The full hero princes gasped, and they bumped into each other as they turned to flee back out the way they'd come. Nolan took a step away from the exit and leaned coolly against the wall to let them pass. When they were gone, he smiled at his friends and took a grand bow before turning to leave. Loud enough for the other princes to hear, he called back over his shoulder, Get ready for the fight of your life, hideous dragon! No one defeats Prince Defendall!